In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. As the Israelites wandered through the arid landscape of Sinai, they remembered the chains they had shed in Egypt yet struggled beneath the burden of their current reality. Hope wrestled against despair. Each dawn was met with the question that shrieked in their hearts, "What shall we eat? Is the Lord among us or not?" The sun cast long shadows over their camp, but the brightness of God's promise flickered dimly, threatened by impatience and doubt. Moses, a humble servant chosen by God, stood amongst them, his heart heavy with their complaints. Even with a faith fortified by divine encounters, the murmurs of discontent washed over him like the harsh winds of the desert. He recalled the promise God made, a covenant of deliverance that transcended their immediate circumstances. Just as the Lord had parted the Red Sea, he would provide for their needs. Suddenly, a gentle breeze stirred the still air, fragrant and sweet, as fine flakes began to fall from heaven like dew upon the thirsty ground. "This is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat," Moses declared, his voice echoing with a mixture of authority and awe. The people paused, wide-eyed in wonder, as they collected the mysterious manna, a symbol of God's unwavering provision. Yet within this daily miracle lay divine lessons of obedience and faith, an invitation to trust in God's good timing. They were instructed to gather only enough for each day, a call to surrender their fears and rely on the faithfulness of the Father. However, as days melted into weeks, a unique struggle unfurled within the camp. Some attempted to hoard more than was necessary, seeking security for the uncertainties that loomed. But each morning they awoke to find their excess had spoiled, illustrating the delicate balance of faith and trust. "How long will we have to wait?" they lamented, wrestling with impatience, forgetting the mighty hand of God that had led them from bondage. The act of collecting the manna daily served as a continuous challenge against their skepticism, inviting them to shift from despair to testimony. In a moment of acute spiritual crisis, the Israelites gathered around Moses, voices rising in a chorus of discontent. "Why have you brought us out here to die of hunger? Did we not have enough in Egypt?" Their questions burned with doubt against the backdrop of God's past miracles. Yet, through their lamentations, the unwavering faithfulness of God remained steadfast, beckoning them to remember not only their complaints but also the goodness of the Lord who delivered them. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These narratives have transformed lives throughout history. If God's word through this story blesses you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As tensions ripened and the question of God's presence hovered heavily, is the Lord among us or not? A profound silence draped over the camp. In that stillness, something remarkable stirred within their hearts, forging a deeper fellowship. What mighty lesson would the Lord impart during this season of testing? Would His provision extend beyond their physical needs, reaching into the very depths of their souls? The air thick with anticipation, the Israelites stood at the precipice of a spiritual awakening, yearning for a resolution that would assure them of the divine love and promises that had yet to be fully revealed. And it came to pass, that as the Israelites continued to murmuring in the wilderness, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Gather the elders of Israel, and I will show them my glory and provide them with a sign that their cries have not gone unheard." The people, sensing an impending revelation, hushed and turned their faces toward Moses, waiting with bated breath. Moses went up the mountain, his heart filled with trepidation yet buoyed by the assurance of the Almighty's presence. There, enveloped by clouds and a divine radiance, the Lord revealed Himself to Moses, reminding him of the covenant made with their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "I have seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt," the Lord declared, "and I am bringing them out of the wilderness into a land flowing with milk and honey." With fervent faith, Moses returned to the people, his countenance radiant with the divine assurance. "The Lord, our God, has heard your cries. He will rain down bread from heaven, and it shall be a test for you to see if you will walk in his ways. Each morning, gather it according to your needs. On the 6th day, you shall gather twice as much, for the Sabbath will be a day of rest. And the Israelites, upon hearing these words, began to murmur amongst themselves in awe and hope. The Lord is indeed among us, they whispered. His promise shall not fail us. They prepared their tents and hearts for the outpouring of heavenly sustenance, drawing near to the Lord with new expectation. As the dawn broke on the morrow, the ground lay adorned with a fine, flake-like substance, white like coriander seed and sweet like honey. The people called it manna, for they did not know what it was. "What is this?" they exclaimed, marveling at the strange provision from heaven. Moses instructed them with clarity, saying, "This is the bread given to you by the Lord. Let each person gather according to their need, an omer for each household, for no one shall keep it until morning." Yet, despite Moses' words, some of them, in their haste to save for tomorrow, disobeyed. They kept part of it until morning, but it bred worms and stank. Then there arose a fear among them, and they began to call upon Moses once more. "Why does this happen?" they wondered, as they perceived their folly. "Will the Lord not provide for our tomorrow?" Standing before them once again, Moses spoke with authority, "Do not be afraid. The Lord will truly provide for our every need. Trust him now, for his promises stand firm." Then came the 6th day, and the Lord filled the skies with the richness of his provision. The people gathered twice as much manna, and none was lost. God's faithfulness became their daily bread, not merely for their bodies, but to teach them trust and temperance. The Sabbath approached, a holy pause commanded by the Lord, beckoning them to rest and reflect. The Israelites, witnessing this miracle of daily bread, began to understand that the true gift was not simply the manna, but the relationship it cultivated between them and their Creator. As they rested on the Sabbath, they realized that God was carving a path for them, leading them from bondage not only to freedom in the wilderness but to a deeper communion with Him. Yet, even in this miraculous provision, God was stirring something profound within the hearts of His people. What greater purposes lay ahead that were concealed from their understanding? What future covenant awaited to be revealed? The Israelites stood on the verge of revelation, sensing that their journey was not merely about bread, but about becoming the people God had destined them to be. And it came to pass, that as the Israelites gathered around their tents on the Sabbath, a hush fell over the camp. They marveled at the stillness, for no manna fell on this sacred day, just as the Lord had commanded. They pondered in their hearts, reflecting on the provisions of the week gone by. Was this rest a sign of God's deliberate design? Moses, seeing their quietude, approached the elders and began to teach them. "Remember the words of the Lord," he said. "He desires for us to remember his mighty works and to sanctify this day. For he said, 6 days you shall gather, but on the 7th, it is a holy rest unto the Lord. This day is not merely a cessation of work, but a time to reflect upon his goodness and mercy." The elders nodded, understanding the depth of Moses' words. Then the people began to share stories of their past, recounting the trials they faced in Egypt and how the Lord's hand had brought them forth from bondage. This sharing ignited their faith, igniting flames of hope within their hearts. As dusk descended, Moses gathered the people, proclaiming, "Hear me, O Israel. The Lord our God has not only given us bread to satiate our hunger, but he is forming us into a nation of priests, a holy people set apart for his glory. Take heed of your hearts and minds, for we are on a journey destined to reveal his plans." Just then, a cloud of glory began to descend upon the mountaintop, and the people looked up in fear and awe. The presence of the Lord enveloped the mountain like a consuming fire. The eyes of the Israelites were drawn toward the summit where Moses stood, radiant and serene, entrusting their cries to the Almighty. Then the Lord spoke to Moses from the cloud, saying, "I shall give you my decrees and commandments, that you may teach them to the people. These commands will show them the way to walk in my statutes and the path I have set before them." Moses, trembling yet emboldened, called forth the people once more. He shared how the Lord had declared, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me." The ramifications of this moment rippled through the crowd as they exchanged glances, feeling the weight of their calling. But, Moses continued, "This is but the beginning. The Lord has more in store. The covenant he is establishing is not merely about obedience, but about the relationship we cultivate with him. He desires to dwell among us, to be our God, and for us to be his people." As he spoke, a thunderous sound echoed from the mountain, instilling a deep reverence in the hearts of the Israelites. They trembled, recognizing the seriousness of the moment, aware that they stood on holy ground. In the lightning and thundering voice of their God, they felt a beckoning, a call to become living terrors against injustice, delving into righteousness, and bringing his covenant to fulfillment. Days turned into weeks, and with each gathering of manna, the relationship between God and his people deepened. However, deep within the hearts of many, questions grew. What would be the true nature of this covenant? How would they become the people of his possession? What would it require of them to walk in his ways and receive his promises? Thus, the Israelites waited and prayed, their hearts poised for the unfolding of God's sovereign plan, clinging to the promise that the best was yet to come. And it came to pass, on the morrow, that the people rose early, their hearts full with wonder and expectation. They gathered once again at the foot of the mountain, gazing upward, their eyes locked upon the awe-inspiring cloud that hovered majestically above. In solemn unity, they awaited the words of the Almighty, for they sensed that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Moses ascended the mountain, drawn by the voice of God, leaving the throng below in breathless anticipation. All at once, the Lord's voice thundered from the heights, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and ordinances I shall lay before you. Observe them, for they are the foundation of your covenant with me." With each decree that poured forth like flowing water, the people strained their ears, absorbing the heavenly instructions. "You shall not make for yourselves a graven image," the Lord commanded, "nor bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments." The weight of these words struck the hearts of the Israelites. They felt the gravity of their calling, invigorated yet terrified by the holiness of God's presence. Moses, filled with divine authority, received the covenant written on tablets by the very hand of God. Each commandment was a lifeline, a promise that would guide their journey. As he descended, rays of divine light emanated from Moses' face, a testament to the encounter he had with the Creator. Seeing him approach, the people were taken aback, for they could not behold his countenance. Thus, he placed a veil over his face as he spoke to them, sharing the commands of the Most High. "Let these words settle in your hearts," Moses urged. "You are to become a peculiar treasure unto the Lord, a beacon unto the nations." As the Israelites listened, something wonderful began to stir within them, hope intertwined with resolve, a will to obey the God who had called them out of darkness into his marvelous light. "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might," Moses declared with authority. "And these words, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children." For indeed, the essence of the covenant was not merely adherence to laws but love and ardent affection for their God that echoed in every family and community. Days passed, and as they struggled amidst the desert's heat, their hearts longed for the promised land, spurring them to fulfill the commandments with tenacity. But whispers of doubt began to creep into their multitude, stirring questions that unsettled their faith. "What if we cannot uphold his commandments?" murmured some. "What if the trials of the wilderness prove too great for us?" Yet, amid uncertainty, hope arose. An ember sparked in their spirits, igniting a deep yearning for communion with God. They recollected the words of Moses, who assured them, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." And so, as they journeyed through the parched land, they found solace in their faith of the promise yet to be fulfilled. Yet, as they drew closer to their destination, they unearthed deeper mysteries in the path ahead. What trials awaited them? What signs would the Lord reveal to strengthen their covenant with Him? Thus, as a new dawn broke over their journey, they felt the weight of the divine purpose drawing nearer. In the silence of the desert, they listened intently, for the Lord's voice promised that they were merely at the beginning of the great and wondrous things He had planned. In every step forward, they were becoming a nation set apart. What would be written in their hearts? What destinies lay ahead, bound in the threads of His sovereign will? And it came to pass, after Moses had shared the commandments with the people, that he instructed them in the judgments and the statutes that would govern their lives. You are to be a holy nation, he reminded them, and the Lord shall walk among you. The air was thick with anticipation, the people were both eager and anxious, for they knew the weight of the promises and the calls of obedience resting upon their shoulders. Days turned into weeks as they moved through the barren wilderness. With each passing moment, the uncertainty of the journey gnawed at their hearts, and the whispers grew louder, like a rising tide. Shall we go back to Egypt? Our lives were simpler there, though we were in bondage, some lamented. Yet, in the depths of their souls, a flicker of faith resisted the shadows of doubt. For every evening, the smoldering embers of hope burned bright as they recounted the wonders that the Lord had performed, beginning with their liberation from Pharaoh's grip. But lo! In the midst of their struggles, the Lord chose to reveal to Moses His intentions for the people. Go forth, he spoke, and gather the elders of Israel. For I shall send forth my presence in a manner that will bring you closer to me. Moses hurried down the rugged slopes of Sinai, gathering the elders beside him, calling for their attention. Hearken unto me. He proclaimed, the depth of his voice resonating with authority. The Lord of hosts has declared that He will dwell among us, and we must prepare ourselves. Sanctify yourselves, for on the third day the Lord will come down before you upon Mount Sinai. The elders then rushed to inform the people with earnest zeal. Each household was commanded to cleanse themselves, to wash their garments, and to set their hearts in readiness, for the moment of divine encounter loomed before them. The air was pregnant with expectation, as they sensed the seriousness of the task set before them. When the appointed day arrived, the people stood at the foot of the mountain, their hearts racing as the atmosphere trembled. Dark clouds gathered, and suddenly there were thunderings and lightnings that lit the valley. It was as if the very earth itself was calling forth the presence of the Almighty. Draw not nigh unto the mountain, Moses had warned. But prepare your hearts, for the Lord is holy, He draws near to the humble and contrite of spirit. As the trumpet sounded long and loud, the people were gripped with fear, their hearts pounding with a mixture of awe and dread. Who are we, that the Lord our God would speak to us? They asked amongst themselves. Yet the flame of divinity filled the space, igniting their souls. In that moment, a thick cloud enveloped the mountain. The ground shook, and the voice of the Lord came forth like a whirlwind, filling their ears with power and majesty. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, proclaimed the voice. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The Israelites gazed up in wonder, their fear intertwined with reverence as they absorbed the profound declaration. It was a calling unlike any they had known, a beckoning into something far greater than themselves, and it became clear that they were not merely recipients, but participants in God's glorious redemptive history. Thus, they understood that each commandment, each law, was a pillar in the house of their faith, meant to guide them into the fullness of life under His sovereign will. As they felt the ground tremble beneath their feet, the truth dawned upon them, a deeper understanding of the covenant and the sacred relationship they now shared with the Most High. And so, the unfolding of the days ahead teased mysteries yet untold. How would their obedience unlock the fullness of His promise? What wonders awaited them in their march toward the land flowing with milk and honey? In that sacred assembly, the realization echoed in their hearts. They were about to witness the intricacies of God's plan. The path to flourishing was not just in the destination but in every sacred step of obedience. Thus, as the voice of God faded into the mountain's stillness, the Israelites found themselves poised at the crux of divine history, beginning a journey that would reveal both trials and triumphs in the tapestry of His love. What astonishing acts were to follow? What challenges would test their faith and affirm his plans? They were about to discover that the Almighty's purpose was more profound than they could imagine, beckoning them to trust in his wisdom. And it came to pass, as the voice of the Lord withdrew into the silence, that the people remained trembling at the foot of the mountain. Their hearts were still reverberating with the thunderous proclamation, and they exchanged glances filled with awe and fear. Among them stood Moses, unwavering amidst the trembling multitude, a steadfast servant chosen to mediate this divine encounter. "Fear not," Moses called to the trembling Israelites, "for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not." Exodus 20 verse 20, his words were a balm, a gentle reminder that though the majesty of the Lord had descended like fire, his desire was not to destroy, but to draw them closer into covenant. Then the Lord commanded Moses to ascend the mountain once more, and Moses obeyed, climbing higher into the cloud that shrouded the summit. There, amid the thick darkness, he awaited the fullness of God's revelation. The Lord spoke again, declaring, "Write these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel." Exodus 34 verse 27, with each word inscribed by divine hand, the commandments of the Lord took shape, a holy blueprint meant to guide his people. They were not mere regulations, but living principles, vibrant truths designed to cultivate a life of righteousness and joy. As Moses listened intently, the weight of the divine instruction filled his heart. He felt the gravity of responsibility resting heavily upon his shoulders. Meanwhile, below on the mountain, the Israelites waited, their anticipation twisting into impatience. Days blended into night, and the fear of abandonment crept into their hearts. "Moses has delayed," they murmured. "What shall we do? Let us make gods to go before us, for we know not what has become of him." Exodus 32 verse 1, thus, a great rebellion stirred among the people, leading them to call upon Aaron, Moses' brother. "Make us gods which shall go before us," they demanded. And Aaron, though reluctant, succumbed to the pressure of the crowd. He gathered their gold and fashioned a golden calf, and with it came a feast, songs of revelry, and a forsaking of the covenant the Lord had extended. As Moses descended with the tablets containing the etched words of God, his heart pounded within him at the sight. Before him the people danced and worshipped the molten image, exulting as they cast aside their devotion to the one who delivered them. Anger surged within Moses, he felt the weight of betrayal in each step he took towards the people. When he reached the multitude, he cast the tablets from his hands, they shattered upon the ground, a visible symbol of the broken covenant. Silence enveloped the crowd as the reality of their sin dawned upon them. The revelry stopped, and a heaviness settled on their hearts. Moses confronted Aaron, demanding, "What have you done to the people?" Aaron, trembling and caught in shame, stammered, "They said unto me, Make us gods. I cast the gold into the fire, and there came out this calf." Exodus 32 verse 24, in that moment, Moses understood the depths of their disobedience. But even in this dark hour, a flicker of divine grace remained. Moses, moved by compassion, pleaded on behalf of the people, calling for God's mercy. "Oh, this people have sinned a great sin," he cried, "yet if thou wilt forgive their sin, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written." Exodus 32 verses 31 to 32, the Lord replied, "Whosoever hath sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book." Exodus 32 verse 33, this revelation, while sobering, was also laden with the promise that a way forward still existed, a path to reconciliation. In the wake of this tumult, God's sovereign plan began to unfold anew. "I will establish my covenant with you," he declared, "and my presence shall go with you." Exodus 33 verse 14, with this promise came an opportunity for restoration and renewal, a reminder that even amidst failure, his grace flowed abundantly. As the Israelites witnessed the unfolding drama of mercy and judgment, they realized that obedience would lead them not only to physical freedom but to spiritual intimacy with their Creator. Yet the path would not be easy, and they stood at the threshold of trials ahead, each moment pressing them toward a deeper revelation of His faithfulness. What greater wonders awaited them in the wilderness? What divine encounters would shape them into the people God desired? Little did they know, the true journey was just beginning, and in their hearts, they would soon discover the depth of God's sovereign love toward those who strive to know Him through obedience and faith. And it came to pass, that the Lord spoke unto Moses while he was still upon the mountain, saying, Hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest. Exodus 34 verse 1, Moses, faithful and obedient, ascended the mountain anew, carrying in his heart the burden of the people's sin and the unfathomable mercy of the Lord. As he prepared, the Lord proclaimed his attributes before him, saying, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty. Exodus 34 verses 6-7, the very essence of God was laid before Moses, a tapestry of justice interwoven with mercy. In the presence of such glory, Moses fell upon his face, worshipping. If now I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, he prayed, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. Exodus 34 verse 9, the Lord responded, behold, I make a covenant, before all thy people I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. Exodus 34 verse 10, as Moses stood in awe, the weight of the covenant bore down upon him, and he understood that through their failures, God's glory would be revealed. In the days that followed, Moses returned to the people with the new tablets, his face radiant with the light of divine encounter. The Israelites, witnessing his transformed visage, trembled with fear and awe. Fear ye not, Moses reassured them, for the Lord hath come to test you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. Exodus 20 verse 20, each word echoed the promise of a shepherd who bore the burdens of his flock, guiding them toward the light of obedience. But whispers fell into their hearts like shadows, oaths of murmuring rising once more. Who is the Lord that we should obey him? Grumbled those led astray by their own desires. Yet Moses stood firm, reminding them of the covenant and the marvels yet to be seen. He called forth the elders to remind them of the power that had saved them from bondage in Egypt. The Lord shall fight for you, he declared, holding steadfast unto their redemption as proof of God's eternal faithfulness. As they began their journey anew towards the promised land, Moses instructed them, keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do. Deuteronomy 29 verse 9, each step taken was to be a reminder of God's presence among them, the ever-watchful eye guiding them from sin towards righteousness. With every challenge faced, the people would prove whether they would be a nation set apart, a people who would embrace their God of mercies. Yet a silent tension lay beneath the surface of their hearts. Would they remain faithful through the trials ahead? The wilderness stretched out before them, a vast expanse of uncertainty. Little did they know, secrets of their destiny awaited just beyond the horizon, entwined with the very lessons of the wilderness. Each trial, a teacher, each moment, a canvas for the artistry of God's plan. The Almighty, with sovereign might, sought to unfold a narrative not yet written, a plot line steeped in redemption and glory. What would come to pass in the pursuit of the promised land? How could their rebellion transform into a rallying cry for covenant community? In their hearts, a lingering question thrummed, igniting a longing for the fulfillment of a divine promise yet unmade. Would they rise to the occasion, or be swallowed in despair? For as the heavens proclaimed the majesty of his purpose, they stood on the precipice of a greater revelation, caught in the delicate dance of grace and obedience. And Moses called unto all Israel, and said unto them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your ears this day, that ye may learn them, and keep, and do them. Deuteronomy 5 verse 1, his voice echoed through the assembly, stirring the hearts of the people as he recounted the story of their deliverance, reminding them of the mighty hand that had led them from Egypt, through the Red Sea, and into the wilderness. Ye have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, he continued, to Pharaoh, and to all his servants, and to all his land, the great temptations which thine eyes have seen, the signs, and those great miracles. Deuteronomy 7 verse 18, the memories of their past mingled with present expectation, kindling within them a flicker of hope and resolve. They stood at a crossroads, before the promise that lay ahead, yet still haunted by the failures of their recent history. As Moses instructed them in the law, he appealed to their senses, urging them to remember the covenant of their forefathers. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Not with our fathers did the Lord make this covenant, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day. Deuteronomy 5 verses 2-3, the weight of these words pressed upon their hearts, leaving them with a charge to uphold their end of the sacred relationship initiated by the Almighty. Yet doubts lingered in the shadows of their hearts. Among them arose the spirit of discontent, voices seeking to sway their minds from faithful obedience. Is it not easier to return to the comforts of Egypt? Some murmured, crafting narratives that championed security over faith. Moses, sensing the turmoil, turned his gaze upward, seeking the Lord for wisdom and guidance amidst the brewing storm. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, commanding him with great authority, But if ye shall indeed obey my voice, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Exodus 19 verse 5, in this divine exchange, the promise of becoming a people set apart resonated throughout the flock. What glories awaited those who would faithfully tread the path laid before them? Encouraged by the assurance of God's presence, Moses urged them further, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, the call to love was profound, stirring the depths of their being as he implored them to inscribe these commandments in their hearts, a perpetual reminder of the covenant they were called to uphold. As days turned to weeks, the leaders fortified their commitments, establishing a shared identity through communal rituals and devotion. Yet, the wilderness proved difficult, provisions were sporadic, and the elements turned harsh. Trials emerged not only from without but from within, revealing the fragility of their faith. Could they sustain their devotion amidst discomfort and uncertainty? One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon casting golden hues upon the camp, Moses climbed the mountainside, seeking the face of the Lord once more. There, enveloped in divine presence, he realized the deeper significance of their journey. Each test, a refining fire, each trial, a step towards the promise. Yet little did he know that the ultimate revelation of God's purpose was intricately entwined with the wandering hearts of the people below. What blows would befall them as they continued through desolation? Would their devotion falter in the face of adversity? And how would God's covenant of mercy shape not only their destinies but the very fabric of future generations to come? For within the wilderness, a greater purpose wove itself into the tapestry of their narrative, a story of redemption yet to unfold, a promise beckoning them onward to glory. And it came to pass, after many days, that Moses, among the heights of the mountain, communed with the Lord, who guided his thoughts and opened his heart to the deeper mysteries of his covenant. I will show thee the land that I have promised unto thy seed, the Lord spoke unto him, and thou shalt not enter it, but thy faith shall be the beacon for those who follow. Deuteronomy 3 verse 27, Moses beheld the vastness of the land stretching before him, a land flowing with milk and honey, rich and fertile. His heart trembled yet burned with a resolute desire for the people below, who languished in the parched wilderness. Lord, he cried out, will they cherish thy commandments, or shall they turn again unto their own ways? The Lord measured his faith. Go, tell the children of Israel to prepare their hearts, for the day of inheritance cometh, he responded, for I shall give them cities they did not build, and vineyards they did not plant, and I will pour out my spirit upon the dry ground. Deuteronomy 6 verses 10-11, Moses descended from the mountain, each step heavy with the weight of divine assurance yet burdened by concern for the hearts of his brethren. He found them gathered, their faces desperate and drawn, murmuring against the God who had saved them, reminding one another of the leeks and garlic left behind in Egypt. Their hearts tethered to the familiar, yet trapped in the barren expanse of doubt. Fear not, O people, Moses proclaimed as he raised his hands high, for the God of Israel is with us. He is our strength and our song, and he shall bring us into the very promise he has spoken. Exodus 15 verse 2, but the murmurs did not cease, there was an unease in the camp, a spirit that wrestled against the joys of deliverance continually. Even in the trial, Moses urged, remember the miracles you have seen. He recounted the parting of the sea and the provision of manna, each word laced with urgency, for the Lord our God He is a consuming fire, He is a jealous God. Deuteronomy 4 verse 24, a shivering silence fell upon them as they listened, the weight of His words igniting within some a flicker of faith, while doubt still clung to others. Among the listening crowd, a young woman stepped forth, a daughter of Israel named Miriam, the sister of Aaron. What shall we do when trials surround us, when our hearts capitulate to weariness? She implored. Moses lowered his gaze to her earnest eyes, we shall recount the greatness of our God daily, and His faithfulness shall overflow our lips. We shall teach our children His ways and show them that our help cometh from the Lord. Psalms 121 verse 2, with renewed spirit, the people began to speak among themselves, recalling the stories of old, the wonders done in their midst. Some wept, others sang, as their hearts began to mend under the touch of intertwined remembrance and faith. Yet, in the high places, the Lord turned His gaze to the future, a time when they would thrive in His promise. These words shall not depart from thy mouth, the Lord declared to Moses, and this covenant shall become a sign and a wonder among all nations. Deuteronomy 6 verses 6-7, as Moses joined with the assembly, he sensed that their journey was merely beginning, the wilderness would not be their final dwelling but a transformative passage toward promise. The whispers of the people carried into the heavens, echoing their desires, mingling with the resolve of God's covenant. What assurance lay ahead for a people trembling in uncertainty? What hope awaited them amidst the vast wilderness? The night fell heavy, and a calmness spread through the camp, yet Moses felt a stirring in his spirit. Doubt and faith danced their perennial dance. Unseen shadows began to gather, woven intricately into the fabric of their journey, proclaiming the sovereign plan of God, waiting for the appointed hour to reveal the fullness of His promise yet to come. And it came to pass, in the fullness of time, that the sun rose upon the wilderness, casting light upon the weary souls of Israel. The camp was astir as Moses gathered the people, his heart ablaze with the revelation of God's unwavering love and promise. Hear, O Israel! He proclaimed, his voice clear and resolute. The Lord has led us through trials, fashioned us through wilderness, and His covenant stands firm forever. The people gathered around, their faces reflecting a tapestry of hope and uncertainty. Moses continued, the Lord our God has been faithful to His promises. As He poured out the gift of manna, so too He has given us the gift of His law, a guide to lead us to the land flowing with milk and honey. Yet, this is but the beginning of a journey toward a greater glory. The elders nodded in agreement, their faces earnest, for they understood the weight of His words. They stood in acknowledgement of their collective journey, from bondage in Egypt to the precipice of the promised land. What shall we do, Moses? They asked, their hearts yearning for direction amidst their fragile faith. Rise, and prepare your hearts. Moses instructed. For the time has come to cross the Jordan River into the land promised to our forefathers. The Lord has declared that He shall go before us, and none shall stand against us. With this proclamation, a spark ignited within the people, firing their resolve. In the days that followed, they gathered their provisions, each family upholding the commandments given to them as a testament of faith. And as they stood by the shores of Jordan, the scalding sun setting fire to the horizon, the moment of longing had finally arrived. We will trust in the Lord, they murmured, forgetting not the miracles they had witnessed nor the promises they had clung to. In obedience, the priests stepped forward, carrying the Ark of the Covenant. As their feet touched the waters of the Jordan, the river parted, revealing a dry path. The people gasped in awe at the miraculous provision of God. Behold, the Lord is among us. They shouted, voices lifted as they crossed over, each step a declaration of faith. Upon entering the land, the Israelites marveled at the lush fields, fertile valleys, and bountiful fruits. They raised their voices in worship, a melody of gratitude resonating throughout the hills. The Lord has brought us to a place of abundance. They celebrated. Yet even amidst their jubilation, the words of Moses echoed in their hearts, "Remember to love the Lord your God with all your heart, and nurture your covenant with him." In the days that unraveled, they lived fully in the promised land, conquering nations as their God had promised and exhibiting the power of their faith. But there were moments when doubt would loom large. Whispers would arise among some, "What if we cannot hold to our covenant? What if we falter in our faith?" But every time, the elders would gather and remind the people of their journey, the parting of the Red Sea, the manna from above, the covenant etched in stone. God's faithfulness has been our guide, they proclaimed in fervor. Moses, having completed his earthly journey, had entrusted the mantle of leadership to Joshua, a faithful servant. With renewed vigor, Joshua echoed the covenant, saying, "Choose ye this day whom ye will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And thus, the cycle of remembrance and returning to the covenant became a beacon in their struggles. The narrative of Israel became a living testimony, a people formed in the crucible of faith and obedience, flourishing in God's grace despite trials and tribulations. In the culmination of time, they remained steadfast, each generation teaching the next, that the God of their fathers still reigns with mercy and grace, capable of restoring even the most wayward hearts if they would turn to him. And thus, the journey continued, rippling across generations, a legacy built on covenant love that would transcend time. For as they bore witness, they understood, every trial endured, every promise fulfilled, drew them closer to the heart of their Creator who had led them from bondage to freedom, from despair to hope. In closing, consider this sacred truth: God is unwavering in his promises. Just as he shaped a nation through trials, he desires to shape you through your own journey. Are you ready to embrace his covenant in your life? Subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm. Your actions can touch lives. Tell us in the comments how this biblical story impacted your faith and reflections. Each testimony encourages others on their journey. This is the moment to share biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Let us join together to proclaim his greatness and ignite faith across the world.